Have you ever been in a situation where you have a property under contract with your seller? Now you're gaining a lot of interest from buyers in the marketplace, and you're coming across a buyer that you're considering doing business with, but they seem a little shaky? We've all been there. And so what I want to do today is provide a lot of value to you by letting you know the clauses you need to have in your B to C contract with your buyer and you as a seller. You don't want to go anywhere, so make sure that you stay tuned. REI, Geek Swag, it's your time to get a bag. All right, I appreciate you for coming on back. If you're really not sure who I am, my name is TJ Hines, also known as REI Geek Swag. You are currently tuned into REI Geek Swag University. Before we go ahead and jump into today's topic, click that subscribe bell button somewhere on this screen so that way we can notify you of all the latest, greatest exclusive content on wholesaling real estate that you will not be able to find anywhere else. Listen, guys, I have 10 years of experience in this game. We wholesale north of 400 homes in 3 different markets from 2011 to roughly about 2015. And then we got into a lot of fix and flip projects from 2015 to 2019. And we did our biggest deal to date coming into 2020, which was a 200 unit apartment syndication, which I'm proudly a general partner and equity owner of. These 7 clauses are going to go into your B2C contract, what you have with your end buyer, meaning you structured the deal as a double closing. So let's go ahead and jump right into it without wasting any more time. The number 1 clause that you need to have in there is this: buyer pays all cash. That's right. You want to make sure that your buyer is fully aware that this is an all cash transaction and that this deal is not contingent on the buyer getting any financing from a conventional lender. Now, what's just as good as cash is a hard money lender. Hard money lenders are essentially private individuals who have once invested in real estate sometime early on in their career, and now they've transitioned into lending money out to local investors where they can turn around and close on these properties within 10 to 14 days by providing cash specific investors. So you definitely want to make sure that you have that clause in there, that buyer pays all cash. Clause number 2 that you want to have in there is, of course, if you're dealing with a serious buyer, they wouldn't have any issues of submitting an earnest money deposit for your deal within a 24-hour time period. They usually do this by wire, or they can essentially physically drop it off to the location where you're going to be closing the deal. You want to make sure that you only give them 24 hours to pull their card to really determine how serious they are. If a buyer ever tells you they need 48, 72 plus hours to submit the EMD, that is kind of fishy, my friend. And I just want to let you know that you may not be dealing with a serious buyer if they need that amount of time to submit $1,000, $2,000, or $3,000 earnest money deposit. Now, just as you have a clause in your contract with the seller, which would be your A to B contract, saying that seller must pay for any unknown liens, encumbrances, debt attached to the title of the property, well, you need to have that same clause as the seller of your contract, B to C, with your buyer. Now, depending on who your buyer is and if you have a relationship with them or not, you definitely want to have another clause in there, again, essentially pulling their card, determining how serious they are about closing on the property. You should always have a clause in there giving them the exact amount of time they have to close on it. So for instance, if I give my buyer a week from the day they actually signed the contract and dated, you want to have that specific clause in there. So for instance, today is Saturday. I want to have a clause in my contract saying that my buyer will close 7 days upon the acceptance of a ratified contract signed and dated by all parties. Another important clause you need to make sure that you have in your contract with your end buyer is the buyer has no inspection contingencies, meaning that this deal wouldn't be predicated on them getting a full home inspection in order for them to take it down. Why? Because you have this in the contract with your seller. You have no inspection contingencies. And usually in all cash transactions, ladies and gentlemen, there aren't going to be any inspection contingencies. If you do get a buyer that comes across and says, hey, I need a 7, 10, 14-day inspection contingency, That can be a red flag, ladies and gentlemen. That is a person that potentially is going to waste your time. And now you only have just a few short days to make sure that you can go out and find that end buyer. If for whatever reason they come back and say, hey, we cannot buy this property because of such and such that we found through the inspection. So you want to make sure that you protect your time and you're dealing with the right person who's going to buy that property with no inspection contingencies. And the best way to do that is make sure that they actually go out there and survey and evaluate the property before you go under contract with them. Let them know that, hey, there aren't any inspection contingencies here. So what I advise you to do is get your crews together, go out there and evaluate the property, spend as much time as you need at the property and determine at that time if this is going to be a viable investment for you. Now, the last clause is a bonus clause, and it just essentially correlates to what we already put in there by saying the seller must pass buyer in free and clear title. Well, you definitely want to have seller must pass buyer free and clear title, or the earnest money is refundable. This is going to make sure that you keep your relationship good with your buyer. If the seller, for whatever reason, can't pass free and clear title, and there's so many liens on the property to where it just kills the deal, then you want to make sure your buyer is in a position without any hassle to get their earnest money deposit back. This is going to keep your relationship good, and they're going to continue to want to seek opportunities with you. Ladies and gentlemen, if this video added any value to you today, go ahead and like the video. Make sure that you put your comments down below inside of the comment section. I always want to know what your thoughts are because it helps me curate the best content for you, so that way you can get out there and crush it in your marketplace. Ladies and gentlemen, this is TJ Hines, also known as REI Geek Swag. If you haven't already, go ahead and click that subscribe bell button. Make sure that you get all of the notifications when it comes to wholesaling real estate, because I'm here to help you flip your way to your first 100K. Peace.
REI Geek Swag, it's your time,